I've never been this happy and this destroyed at the same time. It's 3 a.m., and I'm pacing the nursery with a bottle in one hand and a folder in the other, the one the agency said I could put away now. The baby's breathing softly in her crib, little fists tucked under her chin, and the whole room smells like lavender lotion and new beginnings. The walls are still half painted, soft yellow, fading into white near the corners where we ran out of energy. There's a second-hand crib, a mismatched set of blankets, and a nightlight shaped like a moon that hums faintly in the dark. Everything about this room feels borrowed, but the warmth in my arms is real. Her name is Nora, and she's been home for 3 weeks. Everyone told me adoption paperwork is endless. Background checks, home studies, notarized forms that feel like exams you could fail for using the wrong pen. When we finally signed the last page, I thought that was it. The end of waiting, the start of everything else. But tonight, flipping through her pediatric packet, I noticed something small. A single line at the bottom of a form. Parent medical history. Unknown. Waiver signed. Blood type O. It's nothing, I told myself. Just paperwork noise. Agencies make typos all the time. Still, I can't stop reading it. That word, unknown, hums louder than the baby monitor, louder than the night itself. The agency had told us everything was complete, that her birth parents' medical records were secure. So why does this feel like the start of a secret instead of the end of a process? I thought adoption paperwork ended when you bring the baby home. I didn't know it could still blow your life up. Evan and I met when we were 17. He was the quiet kid in the back of biology class who passed me notes that always made me laugh, even when I was trying to be serious. By 22, we were married. By 25, we had the mortgage, the golden retriever, and a rhythm so steady you could time your watch to it. Ours wasn't an extraordinary love. It was an everyday one, built on grocery lists and shared passwords, on the way he'd always remember to fill my car with gas before long drives. 1,000 small kindnesses, steady as breathing. We started trying for a baby at 29. At first it was fun, whispered jokes about due dates, baby names scribbled on napkins, but months turned into years. 2 failed IUIs, 1 failed IVF, endless tests that always came back with the same verdict: unexplained infertility. It's amazing how 2 words can gut your entire life. We stopped saying the names out loud after that, stopped talking about when, started saying if. Adoption became the new dream. Cautious, complicated, but still a dream. We went to seminars, filled out endless forms, and sat through interviews where strangers asked us to prove we'd make good parents. The Dear Expectant Mother letter nearly broke me. How do you write a love letter to someone you'll never meet, begging her to choose you? We rewrote it 20 times until the agency said it was perfect. When we got the call, a closed adoption, a healthy baby girl born early that morning, I barely remember breathing. We drove 90 minutes through the rain, my heart pounding the whole way. When the nurse placed her in my arms, wrapped in a thin charity blanket, everything I'd lost in the past years went silent. That first night home, I sat beside her crib and cried. Not from sadness, but from the weight of getting what I'd been begging for. Gratitude so big it hurt. I'm not a saint. I wanted a baby. I wanted this baby. And I told myself any questions about the past could wait. The first time I noticed it, it didn't even feel like a moment. It was small, forgettable. Something that should have just been another piece of paperwork in a stack I'd already stopped reading carefully. At Nora's 2-week appointment, the nurse flipped through her newborn screening results, checking boxes in a way that made me oddly nervous. "Everything looks perfect," she said, smiling. "Healthy weight, clear lungs, blood type O positive." I smiled back, half listening, more focused on whether I'd packed enough diapers. But later that night, while washing bottles, that one detail kept tugging at me. O positive. Evan's blood type was AB. I remembered from our IVF workup years ago. Mine was A. Back then, I'd joked about how he was the universal receiver, how he could handle anything. We'd laughed. I hadn't thought about it since. But now, that memory wouldn't leave me alone. I didn't remember much from high school biology, just enough to know that certain combinations didn't mix. The more I tried to shake it off, the more the thought burrowed in. At midnight, I opened my laptop. A quick Google check turned into a full-blown spiral. AB+. A parents cannot produce an O blood type child. Not unlikely, not rare, impossible. I reread it, trying to find a loophole, some rare recessive variant, a clerical error, a margin for miracle, but every search ended the same. The next morning, I called our old fertility clinic, my voice too casual. "Hi, I just need to confirm my husband's blood type for insurance records." A few hours later, an email arrived. Subject, historical lab data, Evan S. Result, ABO group, AB positive, confirmed. When I brought it up that evening, Evan barely looked up from his phone. "Don't start with internet charts, Mara. Those things are always simplified. You know how that stuff is." I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "It's just strange, right?" He kissed my forehead, a quick, dismissive reassurance. "You worry too much." And maybe he was right. Maybe I was being paranoid. Still, that night after he fell asleep, I ordered a cheek swab DNA kit. I told myself it was for medical history, just to fill in the gaps the agency couldn't. But deep down, I already knew it was something else. It wasn't curiosity, it was fear. For a few days, I managed to convince myself it was nothing, a clerical mistake, a typo, something lost in translation between agencies and hospitals. But then the little things started showing up, the kind of details that don't make sense until they do. It started with a bill, a stray envelope buried in a pile of junk mail, Hospital Ancillary Billing Group. The name didn't ring a bell, but the address did. It was ours, and the patient name section was blank. Instead, there was a cryptic reference number and a charge date a few days before Nora's placement. I called the agency. 15 minutes of hold music. Then a new coordinator. Polite, but useless. "Oh, your original caseworker is no longer with us," she said, her voice all honey and distance. Every question I asked got the same rehearsed response. "All medical charges are transferred upon placement." But this wasn't a transfer, it was a ghost bill. That night, I started combing through old emails. I wasn't looking for anything. At least that's what I told myself. Still, when I saw it, my stomach dropped. A message to Evan's personal email dated 2 months before we got the call. Subject, follow-up, profile, and timing from the agency. I clicked it open. The message was brief, polite, professional. Nothing scandalous. But it was sent to him, not us. No CC, no reply. Just a conversation I'd never known existed. The next breadcrumb came from his phone. I wasn't proud of it, scrolling through his call history while he showered. A number listed only as a single initial. The same number called twice in one day, 6 weeks before the placement. My mind kept circling back to something our home study social worker said. Sometimes matches feel like fate. But what if fate had a middleman? When the cheek swab kit arrived, Evan barely glanced at it. "Work's insane," he said, sliding the box aside. So I did it myself. I swabbed my cheek, then Nora's, her tiny mouth opening, trusting, unaware. I left Evan's sealed packet on his nightstand, like an accusation and a prayer. Later, I sat beside her bassinet and watched her sleep, her fist curled around nothing. "I will love you either way," I whispered, and I meant it. The test results arrived on a Tuesday, tucked inside an unassuming email with the subject line, "Your DNA report is ready." I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, heart pounding like I was waiting for a verdict. The app opened with cheerful icons, color-coded charts, and polite scientific language that felt almost cruel in its neutrality. Result, maternity exclusion confirmed, 0% biological relation, expected, logical. Still, it hit harder than I'd anticipated. There was a tab beneath it that said, "Add second parent when ready." I stared at that button for a long time. Then I called out, "Evan, can you come here for a second?" He stepped into the kitchen, half distracted, wiping his hands on a towel. I turned the phone toward him. "Can you swab tonight? Just so we can rule it out, for medical records." He froze. It was subtle. A blink too long, a shallow inhale. But I saw it. Something behind his eyes crumpled, like a secret trying to crawl back inside before it escaped. "Why?" he asked, too soft. "I just want everything complete, clean." He looked at me for a long time, then sat down across from me. His voice was barely audible. "Mara, I need to tell you something." I felt the world tilt before he even started. "It was last year," he said. "We were in a bad place. I was angry, drunk, stupid. It meant nothing. It ended almost immediately." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. The words just hung there, poisonous and alive. He kept talking, each sentence worse than the one before. She was a contract hire. She left the company a few months later. I didn't know she was pregnant. I swear I didn't. My body went cold. My hands started shaking. She? I managed. Who is she? He hesitated, then said the name quietly, like a confession he'd rehearsed in nightmares. And I knew it. I'd seen it before. In that old email thread labeled follow-up, profile, and timing. The same initial, the same week. He saw the realization hit. Mara, the emails weren't about her. I just wanted to understand how the agency worked. For us. I didn't know. I didn't know it would be her. My voice came out distant, mechanical, unrecognizable. You had an affair, she had your child, and we adopted your mess. When I called the agency again, I wasn't crying this time. I was calm. Too calm. I used the kind of voice that makes people listen. Flat, precise, controlled. I told them I wanted to speak to someone higher up. When the receptionist tried to reroute me, I said the words legal counsel. That worked. 2 hours later, I was on the phone with their compliance officer. She sounded nervous, cautious, the way people do when they realize they're about to say something that could cost them their job. There was some prior contact, she admitted, shuffling papers audibly. From a prospective adoptive father, months before your official match. Same IP address, same last name. I didn't breathe. A pause, then the sound of typing. There's also a note. It's heavily redacted, but she hesitated, lowering her voice. It says, PF strongly prefers closed. Urgent timing. PF prospective father, Evan. When I confronted him, he didn't fight, didn't lie this time. He just sat down on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, eyes hollow. I thought she might be mine, he said quietly. When the agency listed the due date, it lined up. I panicked. I thought if I could get her into our home, if we could raise her together, it would fix everything. It would erase what I did. He looked up at me, his voice cracking. I wasn't trying to deceive you, Mara. I was trying to protect us. Protect us. I sat down on the nursery floor, the soft pink rug pressing against my palms. The baby monitor buzzed faintly, her small breaths filling the room. I looked at the crib, at the child I'd prayed for, dreamed of, fought for, and understood. She was everything I'd ever wanted, and the living proof of a lie he built just to keep me. The next morning, I called a lawyer. By noon, she'd drafted a formal complaint to the agency. Violations, ethical breaches, consent discrepancies. I didn't read all of it. The words blurred together into something colder than grief. 2 days later, a letter arrived. It was from the birth mother's advocate. The handwriting was neat, almost delicate. The note was short. No contact requested. She's glad the baby is loved. That was all. No apology, no explanation. Just a single sentence closing the loop on a life that had already swallowed mine whole. Evan sleeps in the guest room now. We don't speak unless it's about schedules or groceries. The house feels mean, too tidy, too quiet, like it's punishing us for what it's witnessed. At 2 a.m., I sit in the nursery, feeding Nora by the dim light of the night lamp. Her eyes find mine, heavy and trusting. None of this is your fault, I whisper. I'm your mom, full stop. And for the first time in weeks, my voice doesn't shake when I say it. In the end, I chose her. In the end, I chose her. I filed for separation, packed Evan's things, and left the bed we built our marriage in. I kept the bassinet, the blankets, the pieces of a life that still had a heartbeat. He thought bringing her body into our home would save our marriage. It didn't. It only taught me the difference between a husband and a father. I'm keeping the father I became.